There are moments in history when the future arrives not with a thunderous crash, but as a quiet, inexorable dawn. A subtle shift in the light, a change in the very air we breathe. We are living in such a moment. It isn't found in the clamor of daily headlines, but in the hushed reverence of laboratories, the focused glow of computer screens, and the silent, intricate dance of molecules within our own cells. This is a revolution happening on a scale both infinitesimally small and profoundly human. For generations, the story of medicine was one of reaction, a narrative of waiting. We waited for the fever, the ache, the unmistakable sign that something was wrong. We waited for a diagnosis, a name for our ailment, often delivered under harsh fluorescent lights. And then we waited to see if the treatments, powerful yet often imprecise, would work. It was a system built on confronting illness after it had already taken hold, a constant battle fought on the back foot. But the foundations of a new story have been laid for decades, brick by painstaking brick. The monumental effort to map the human genome, once a far-off dream, gave us our biological blueprint. The explosion of computational power allowed us to analyze that blueprint with a speed and depth previously unimaginable. And the slow, methodical work of countless researchers, piecing together the complex puzzles of cellular biology, built the vocabulary for a new language of health. Now, in 2025, that language is becoming fluent. 2025 is not just another year in medicine. It marks a turning point, a threshold we have crossed where decades of that quiet research have finally, decisively, become reality. The theoretical has become tangible. The abstract has become actionable. This is the dawn of predictive medicine, a fundamental reimagining of our relationship with our own bodies. Diseases once detected too late, when they had already become formidable adversaries, are now seen years, even decades, earlier. We are learning to spot the faint molecular whispers of cancer, the subtle metabolic shifts that precede diabetes, the neurological tremors that signal future decline, long before they manifest as symptoms. We are moving from diagnosis to prognosis, from reaction to foresight. Treatments once generic, a one-size-fits-all approach applied to a diverse population, are becoming profoundly personal. Your unique genetic code, the specific makeup of your microbiome, the real-time data from your daily life, all of this now informs therapies designed not for a disease, but for... The era of blunt instruments is giving way to an age of molecular scalpels, precise and personalized. And healthcare itself, the very system we rely on, is shifting at its core, from reactive to predictive, from a model of sickness to a model of wellness. The hospital is no longer the sole domain of health. It is in our homes, on our wrists, and in the data streams we generate every second. This is the story of health in 2025. It is a narrative woven from three powerful threads. It is the story of what science has discovered. The intricate pathways of aging, the hidden influence of inflammation, the delicate balance of our metabolic engines, and the vast, uncharted universe within us known as the microbiome. It is the story of what technology has unlocked, the power of artificial intelligence to see patterns we cannot, the potential of digital twins to simulate our own biology, and the ability of gene editing to correct the very source code of disease. And ultimately, it is the story of how this convergence is reshaping everything we thought we knew about the human body, the practice of medicine, and the future of life itself. This is not a distant future. This is the landscape of now, and it invites us to ask a new set of questions. Not just how do we treat illness, but how do we cultivate a lifetime of health? Join us as we explore the new frontiers of human potential.
For centuries, aging was a truth accepted as inevitable, a one-way journey woven into the fabric of poetry, philosophy, and our own family histories. We saw it in the mirror, in the turning of the seasons, in the stories passed down through generations. It was a fundamental law of nature, as certain as the rising of the sun. But what if a law of nature is simply a process we haven't yet learned to read? In 2025, science sees it differently. The conversation has shifted from passive acceptance to active inquiry. The question is no longer we can influence aging, but, and for the future of human health. This is not a story about immortality or a mythical fountain of youth. It is a story about understanding the intricate biology of time itself, written in the language of our own cells. It's about separating the number of years we have lived, our chronological age, from the actual health and vitality of our bodies, our biological age. And in that distinction lies a revolution. The key to this revolution is a framework that has unified longevity research across the globe, the hallmarks of aging. First proposed in 2013 and refined over the following decade, this framework identifies the core biological drivers that underpin the aging process. These are not separate diseases, but interconnected mechanisms that cause our bodies to become more fragile and susceptible to illness over time. Think of them as the foundational cracks that eventually weaken the entire structure. By understanding these hallmarks, we move from treating the symptoms of age, the heart disease, the arthritis, the cognitive decline, to addressing the root causes. Research now frames aging as a biological process, driven by these measurable mechanisms. It begins at the very core of our identity, our genome. Genomic instability, or DNA damage, is the first hallmark. Our DNA is the master blueprint for every cell in our body, a code 3 billion letters long. Every day, this blueprint is under assault from both external forces, like UV radiation and environmental toxins, and internal byproducts of our own metabolism. Our cells have remarkable repair systems, constantly proofreading and fixing this damage. But over time, these systems become less efficient. Small errors accumulate like typos in a sacred text. These errors can lead to faulty proteins, cellular dysfunction, and an increased risk of cancer. It's the slow, creeping degradation of our most fundamental information. If DNA is the blueprint, then mitochondria are the power plants. These tiny organelles within our cells are responsible for converting the food we eat into the energy that fuels every heartbeat, every thought, every movement. But this energy production comes at a cost. It creates reactive oxygen species, or free radicals, which can damage the mitochondria themselves. Over a lifetime, this leads to mitochondrial decline. The power plants become inefficient, producing less energy and more harmful waste. This cellular energy crisis manifests as the physical fatigue, slower recovery, and metabolic slowdown we often associate with getting older. Our cellular batteries are simply running out of charge. What happens when a cell becomes too damaged to function properly but refuses to die? It enters a state known as cellular senescence. These are often called zombie cells. They stop dividing and performing their duties, but they linger, secreting a cocktail of inflammatory signals that poison their local environment. This process, called the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP, creates a low-grade, chronic inflammation that spreads throughout the body. A few senescent cells are manageable, but as they accumulate with age, they contribute to a wide range of conditions, from osteoarthritis to atherosclerosis. They are saboteurs, actively undermining the health of the surrounding tissue. Beyond these, other hallmarks compound the problem. One is the loss of proteostasis, our cell's quality control system for proteins. Proteins are the workhorses of the cell, needing to be folded into precise three-dimensional shapes to function. With age, this quality control network falters. Misfolded proteins begin to accumulate, clumping together and disrupting cellular processes. This protein aggregation is a key feature of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Another hallmark is altered intercellular communication. The complex signaling network that coordinates actions between our trillions of cells becomes noisy and distorted. Hormonal systems change, and inflammatory signals create a constant, damaging background hum of chronic inflammation, accelerating the aging process in a vicious cycle. The hallmarks of aging framework, validated across human and animal studies, from yeast and worms to mice and primates, now guides modern longevity research. It provides a roadmap, allowing scientists to target these specific mechanisms with interventions. We are seeing the development of senolytics, drugs designed to clear out those zombie cells. We are exploring therapies to boost mitochondrial function and enhance our innate DNA repair systems. This doesn't mean immortality. That remains the stuff of science fiction. But it does mean that aging is modifiable, not stopped, but slowed, and in some cases, partially reversed. We are at the dawn of an era where we can add not just years to life, but life to years. In the complex tapestry of modern health, a single unifying thread has emerged, weaving through nearly every chronic disease that plagues our time. It's a discovery so profound, it's forcing us to rewrite the very textbooks of medicine. This common denominator isn't a virus, a genetic mutation, or a single environmental toxin. It's a process happening deep within our bodies, often for decades, without a single outward sign. We call it chronic low-grade inflammation. It's not the familiar acute inflammation of a sprained ankle or a healing cut, the body's heroic, short-term defense. This is something far more insidious, a silent, smoldering fire, a biological alarm system that has forgotten how to turn off. To understand this shift, we must first appreciate inflammation's vital, protective role. When your body detects a threat, a splinter, a bacteria, it launches a swift and powerful inflammatory cascade. Immune cells are the first responders, flooding the area to neutralize the invader and clear away damaged cells. The area becomes red, swollen, and warm. This is healing in action. Once the threat is gone, the system stands down and balance is restored. This is acute inflammation, and without it, we couldn't survive. But what happens when the off switch is broken? What if the triggers aren't temporary invaders but constant features of our daily lives? The immune system remains perpetually activated, simmering at a low boil. Its powerful weapons, designed for short, targeted battles, are now deployed continuously throughout the body. Instead of protecting us, this friendly fire begins to inflict collateral damage on our own healthy tissues and organs. This is the dangerous state of chronic inflammation.
For decades, we saw inflammation as a consequence of disease. If a patient had atherosclerosis, we'd see inflammation in their arteries and assume it was just a reaction to the plaque buildup. We were looking at the smoke and ignoring the fire. The paradigm shift in the 21st century is the understanding that in many cases, this low-grade systemic inflammation is not the result of the disease, it is the instigator. It's the fertile ground in which these conditions take root and flourish. It's the engine driving the pathology forward, often years before a diagnosis is even possible. This realization changes everything, especially our approach to prevention and treatment.
By the year 2025, this new understanding has solidified. Inflammation is no longer viewed as just a symptom, but a foundational root cause. Consider heart disease. We now know that inflammatory signals can damage the delicate lining of our arteries, making them susceptible to cholesterol buildup. The plaque itself triggers more inflammation, creating a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle that leads to atherosclerosis. In type 2 diabetes, chronic inflammation interferes with the body's ability to use insulin effectively, a condition known as insulin resistance. Inflammatory molecules released by excess fat tissue, particularly around the organs, directly disrupt the signaling pathways that allow sugar to enter our cells for energy. Even cancer is being re-examined through this lens. A chronically inflamed environment can damage DNA, promoting the uncontrolled cell growth that defines malignancy. It can also help tumors build their own blood supply and evade the immune system. The connections are startling and widespread, linking inflammation to the cognitive decline of Alzheimer's disease, where it contributes to the buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain, and to the painful confusion of autoimmune conditions, where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues, from the joints in rheumatoid arthritis to the gut in Crohn's disease. So, what is fueling this silent epidemic? The triggers are woven into the very fabric of modern life. They are the daily choices and chronic conditions that we have come to accept as normal. Ultra-processed foods, laden with refined sugars, unhealthy fats, and artificial additives, are a primary culprit. They can disrupt the delicate balance of our gut microbiome, leading to a condition called leaky gut, where inflammatory particles pass into the bloodstream, putting the entire immune system on high alert. Chronic stress, whether from a demanding job, financial worries, or emotional turmoil, keeps our bodies flooded with the stress hormone cortisol. While anti-inflammatory in the short term, prolonged exposure dysregulates the immune response, ultimately promoting inflammation. Poor sleep is another critical factor. During deep sleep, our bodies perform essential maintenance, including regulating the immune system. When sleep is consistently cut short or disrupted, this regulatory process fails and inflammatory markers rise. And finally, a sedentary lifestyle. Physical inactivity, especially when combined with excess body fat, turns our fat tissue into a veritable factory for pro-inflammatory molecules, which are then circulated throughout the body. Individually, each of these factors is a spark, but together, day after day, they quietly activate these inflammatory pathways, a relentless, low-grade assault that damages our cells, tissues, and organs over years, even decades. The science is now unequivocally clear. Most chronic disease is not a sudden event. It is not a bolt from the blue. It is the cumulative result of a long, slow burn. It is the final, visible chapter of a story that began years, or even decades, earlier in the silent realm of our cells. And in this profound realization lies our greatest hope. Because if disease is a process, not an event, if it is cumulative, then it can be intercepted, it can be slowed, it can even be reversed. And that means, for the first time in human history, true prevention is finally possible. In 2025, metabolism is recognized as the foundation of health. Insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, visceral fat, and blood sugar instability are now linked to cardiovascular disease, dementia, cancer risk, hormonal disorders. New research confirms that metabolic dysfunction often precedes disease by 10 to 20 years. This shifts medicine from treating symptoms to correcting the biological environment in which disease forms. Artificial intelligence is no longer experimental. In hospitals worldwide, AI now detects cancer on scans earlier than human specialists, predicts heart attacks from ECG data flags, sepsis before symptoms appear, assists doctors with diagnosis and treatment planning. In 2025, AI is best understood not as a replacement for doctors, but as a biological amplifier. The result? Earlier detection, more precision, fewer errors. One of the most radical shifts in 2025 medicine is the rise of digital twins. Using genetics, blood markers, imaging, and wearable data, AI creates a virtual model of your body, allowing doctors to simulate drug responses, predict disease risk. Customized treatment medicine is moving away from averages toward you. This is precision medicine, not futuristic, but already emerging in oncology, cardiology, and metabolic care. What once took 10 to 15 years now takes months. AI-driven drug discovery platforms design molecules, predict toxicity, and repurpose existing drugs. In 2025, the first AI-designed drugs have entered clinical trials, particularly in cancer, infectious disease, and rare genetic conditions. This doesn't mean instant cures, but it means faster progress than at any point in medical history. The gut microbiome is now recognized as a regulatory organ. Trillions of microbes influence immunity, metabolism, brain chemistry, mood, and behavior. In 2025, microbiome-targeted therapies are being explored for depression, obesity, autoimmune disease, neurodegeneration. Health is no longer viewed as human alone, but as human plus microbes. Wearables are no longer fitness gadgets. They now track heart rhythm, sleep stages, glucose trends, stress biomarkers. Combined with AI, they turn raw data into early warnings. Disease detection is shifting from hospital to home, from late to early, from treatment to prevention. Despite progress, 2025 medicine faces serious challenges. Data privacy, algorithmic bias, unequal access, over-medicalization.
Technology is powerful, but not neutral. The future of health depends not only on innovation, but on responsible implementation.
Human judgment remains essential. After all the technology, the most powerful health tools remain simple: consistent sleep, whole foods, daily movement, stress regulation, social connection. No algorithm can replace biology's fundamentals. Technology works best when it supports, not replaces, lifestyle. 2025 does not guarantee better health, but it offers something new: agency. For the first time, science allows us to see disease earlier, understand our biology, intervene before damage becomes permanent. The future of health is no longer written only by genetics, but by knowledge, behavior, and informed choice. This is the Life Lens, seeing life through science. If this documentary helped you understand your body and the future of medicine, support science-based education by following Off the Life Lens 60.